Welcome to the Net Wealth Nest podcast, the show that helps everyday people build real financial stability, starting from wherever you are. Whether you're working your way out of debt or just starting to save, we're here to help you grow your net wealth to your first big wealth milestone. Each episode, we break down the mindset shifts, practical tools, and real-life actions that can transform your financial future. Thanks for tuning in. Now let's get to work building your net wealth nest. Welcome to the Net Wealth Nest podcast. I am your host, Jim LaBeouf, and thanks for joining us again today as we work to help you build your financial stability and grow your net wealth. Welcome to part 3 of our home buying series, and this is it. You found your house. Your offer was accepted. You've done your due diligence from getting everything set up and the first 2 steps that we talked about. Now you're ready to do your due diligence on the house itself and close this deal. We're going to walk through a few things that you should be doing during this part of the home buying process and things to look out for, recommendations, and anything else that might come your way. Keep in mind that we are not offering advice, just education, and also knowing that lenders have different types of products and different types of expectations depending on the bank you're going through as well as the area of the country that you live in. And so with that, we're going to get into a little bit about what to do and what to expect as you are closing your house deal. So the first thing we're going to talk about is inspections and a little bit of negotiation. First and foremost is my general recommendation that you always have an inspection done on the house after you have had an accepted offer. And the reason for this is there are things that the homeowner might not even know that could be detrimental to the longevity of the house. Maybe there's a foundation issue. Maybe there's something wrong with the roof. There could be a slew of things, but spending $500 to $1,000 on a home inspection is well worth the cost when you think about any type of large issue could cost you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to remedy. Also, make sure that the homeowner's giving you the full picture of what is going on with that house. But more often than not, what I've found and what I've seen in the past is homeowners don't even know about these issues while they're living in the house. And the inspection just brings those to light and then allows the new homeowner to figure out what they want to do, if it's either to negotiate a fix or a payment for that, or to just let it go. The big things that you will have looked at when you do a home inspection are going to be the roof of the house, all the exterior. They'll look at the foundation. They're going to look at the heating and air conditioning, the water supply and plumbing, electrical, all the things. There's a lot of other things that most inspectors will also put in their report that are mainly cosmetic. For example, let's say there's a chipped tile in the bathroom or the shower, or even a stain on the floor in the carpet or something like that. These reports are typically really thorough, and an inspector's generally going to spend anywhere between 2 and 4 hours on the property inspecting it. And again, when you were talking about $500 or $600 or $700 or even $1,000, having somebody spend half a day going top to bottom for the property that you want to buy is well worth it. Once you get the report back, you can list out with your real estate agent things that you might want to negotiate for either being fixed or paid for. Let's just say that there is a safety issue with the deck that is attached to your house. You could ask the current homeowner to either remedy the situation or compensate you in money to remedy the situation upon you receiving the home itself and the keys for the house. What we typically recommend is you stick to those big issues and or safety issues. So if there's roofing problems you weren't aware of, or if there's foundational problems, electrical, plumbing, if there's safety concerns about things like stairs and doors or any of that stuff, those are things that you can bring up and will typically get some positive response from the seller. When it comes to cosmetic things, you're typically not going to get the same response from the seller. Most sellers will clean up their place and will do their due diligence in having the place look as best as it possibly can. A single stain on the carpet, they're not going to replace all the carpeting for you. And the same goes for other things. When you think about paint's always another good one. People are like, oh, the paint's all scuffed up in this room. We're going to need to repaint this room. If you ask a seller to do that, most sellers will not. They will say, hey, you can go ahead and repaint it, or they might give you a credit, but most sellers are like, hey, you've seen it, you know what it is, you knew that was going to be something that needed to be painted when you made the offer, and it is what it is. And so those are the types of things where we typically stick with. If you see a safety issue, or if it is a large issue that could cost a significant portion of money, and again, those are things like your foundation, your roof, your heating and air conditioning, then you should be going back in with some sort of negotiation or remedy to fix those problems. And then when it's cosmetic, those are typically let go. The second piece is the appraisal, and the appraisal is really important. If you go and offer, let's say $200,000 on a home, and the offer is accepted, and the bank is going to loan you, let's just say $180,000 of that. So you're going to put $20,000 down. They're going to loan you $180,000 of that. They want to make sure that house is at least worth that $200,000 that you're offering. And so if it would come back where, let's just say they appraise the house and it only comes back at 170, they are not going to approve your loan. And the reason that is, if they did that, they're putting themselves at risk if you default. And so let's walk that out for a second. The bank goes ahead and says, okay, we'll give you the loan for 180, even though the house is only worth 170. You've given us 20 grand because you're buying it over market for 200 for whatever reason. But okay, they do that. And then you stop making payments on the house almost immediately. The bank ends up foreclosing the house, and now they own the house. Now they own a $170,000 house that they have loaned out 180,000. That 180 is gone to the seller, and that money ain't coming back. Now they own an asset that's worth less than what they paid for it. And that's not a position a bank ever wants to be in. So they want to see that appraisal come through at the right amount so that they can approve your loan. And typically the banks will have specific appraisers that they use and that they stick to, and they don't let you just go out and choose any appraiser you want. There's typically a list of people that they have already vetted and that they trust and that will do the appraisal for you. The good news is if you've done your due diligence, you have a great realtor, you're typically going to put an on-market offer there on that property that you want to purchase. And more often than not, the appraisal comes in with the appropriate pricing to match the offer. Once you have that, other things that will happen that should be part of the bank and your realtor's process is your insurance, your title, and then scheduling for everything. So most banks will have a title company that they recommend, and most realtors will as well. And typically, if they have somebody that they like and they recommend, we usually say, yep, that's okay to go with it. The cost for a title company to do their work is very similar across companies, at least from my experience. But what that title company does is it basically looks at the title of the property or the deed or the document that shows that the current homeowner owns it. And they make sure there's no errors on it. They make sure nobody else is trying to claim ownership of that property. They make sure that there are no liens, like from a contractor who didn't get paid and that they'll need to be paid out, all those things. And so they will go through that process to make sure that when you receive the property, it is in your name. You're not surprised by anything or other people trying to claim that they own the property or again, liens on the property. None of that is of a surprise to you. And if they do find that, they will work with the seller to have that taken care of before the transfer of property. Insurance and scheduling of utilities should be two other things that you work on dates to get scheduled in at the close of the property. So let's just say you're going to close on the 1st of the month. It's September 1st and you're closing on the property. You want to make sure that you have done your due diligence, maybe shopped around a little bit and have an insurance company lined up that will start an insurance policy for you on September 1st when you take ownership of that property. And without that, quite frankly, most banks will not approve the loan. They want to see the insurance to cover the property before they finally sign off on the loan. And then from a utility standpoint, obviously, if you get the keys on September 1st, you want to be able to walk in on September 1st. And you'll need to make sure you turn on power, gas, water, all of those types of things and have those transferred into your name so that you have those utilities running when you get the property. So then what happens next? Well, while you're doing all that, the bank is working diligently to finalize and underwrite your loan. And basically what they're doing is they're just getting all the paperwork together from their end. They're making sure they have all the paperwork that they need from you, which could be things like your pay stubs, previous tax returns for sure, bank statements, credit card statements, all sorts of different things. They are making sure that you are financially secure to be able to buy this house and that they're going to receive their monthly checks in payment from you. And they walk through all of that. They're working with the title company to make sure the property is in good order. They typically want to see, like I said before, the insurance and all of those types of things. So they're getting all their ducks in a row. And that's usually happening. And sometimes they'll come back for more things. Sometimes they'll say, hey, you've got this charge out here. We're not sure what it is. Can you provide us some documentation to tell us what that is? Or something like, hey, you had this big purchase, which you should not be doing if you're in the middle of buying a house. But what is this big purchase? Why is this happening? What is that? How is that going to change your financial picture? Or maybe you have some different ways you gather income and forgot to give them a certain way you get income, those types of things. But basically, they're going to make sure they have all their ducks in a row, all their I's dotted, their T's crossed, and all of that as you get close to actual closing day. And then we get to the fun part. Once all that's done, we get a final sign off of everything. You get a closing disclosure before your actual closing day, which tells you this is how much the down payment and the money that you're bringing to the table to close the house. This is what the seller's going to get. These are the proceeds that the seller would get or the profit that they'll make off the property. All those things will happen. And you're now finally at closing day. And at closing day, typically what happens is you will go through a walkthrough before your closing. Literally, just like you walk the house when you first toured it, you're going to go through with your realtor. You guys are going to look around. You're going to make sure that the seller has done everything that they said they were going to do. For example, removing all of the stuff off the property that is theirs, all of those types of things. You're going to make sure that there's nothing different than what you expected. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to walk into a house that maybe had ceiling fans in all the rooms. And then you walk in right before your closing and they've removed all the ceiling fans and just put basic lights up. Like that would be something that would not be acceptable. And it is an example of a reason why you do a final walkthrough the morning of your closing. And so you'll do that. Everything will be set up. And then you go to the bank and you'll actually execute the closing. And when you're executing the closing, you sign a ton of documents. The bank goes over what your mortgage payment is going to be, the interest you're going to pay, when that payment is due, which is usually on the first of the month, but sometimes you can change that. All of those things they're going to go through with you and make sure you understand exactly what you're signing. Your realtor will be there with you. And sometimes the seller will be there as well as you go through those documents. Not always, but sometimes. And so you'll go through all that. You'll sign a lot of paperwork showing that you are taking ownership of the property and also guaranteeing that you're going to make payments on the property. And then you're done and you're handed the keys and you go to your new house. And congratulations, you are now a homeowner. But there's more that still needs to be done, especially in your first few months in the property. The one thing that you really should do in the first 30 to 60 days is you should change the locks. Now, while you might think you receive all the keys, there have been instances where old homeowners have kept old keys, the people don't change the lock, and maybe they show up for whatever reason. A weird horror-like story, but it does happen. So you should change the locks on all the doors. If applicable with your property taxes, many counties across the country have what's called a homestead tax incentive, which means that if this is your primary residence, it'll actually lower your property tax bill just a little bit. You should make sure that you are building your maintenance fund as well throughout the course of your first year in the property to protect yourself in case you need any major repairs. And then the last thing you should do is create some sort of routine or calendar or something around just general maintenance. So things like changing your furnace filter, changing the batteries on your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, clean out the gutters, just general maintenance on your house. You should create some sort of just basic schedule to execute those. And there's a ton of them. If you search that online, like home maintenance schedule for new homeowners, you will get a ton of different documents that will work great for you and for your house. And then the last thing I'm going to cover today is just common pitfalls as you're going through this process. And the one that sticks out the most and that I see the most is that somebody will make a large purchase while they're going through the closing of the property. And that could be something as simple as buying a new vehicle. You want to stay away from any of those types of purchases until you have closed on your loan, because that resets all the work that the bank has done. And they start to get really uneasy about your ability to repay if you are adding new debt to yourself while you're already trying to add this significant portion of money that you'll be paying for housing. And always avoid anything that adds large debt, whether it be something like a car, even going out and spending money on electronics and new TVs and appliances and all those things. Like, you should try to wait until you're done closing, even if you have plans to do that, because the bank wants to see stability in you while they're doing their underwriting. If they do not see stability, they very well could deny your loan, and then you start all over again. Also, I never recommend, and some people do this to win the deal, is they waive their inspection. And part of the inspection is if you find something, like let's say you find out that the roof needs replacement immediately, and that was not something you thought about or were aware of when you put your offer in. That could be grounds for you to pull out of the deal, to renegotiate a whole new purchase price, to ask the seller to fix any of that stuff. If you remove your inspection out of that, I've seen people do this before because they think it'll make a stronger offer, and then they get in the place and something drastic goes wrong. It can really derail your financial picture very quickly. And the last thing is just triple check that you've accounted for all the expenses that go into there. So we've talked about like the maintenance expenses and saving 1 to 2% of the total property price for that over the course of a year, but also things like knowing what the HOA is, making sure you understand the taxes fully and when those will be paid and how those will be paid, if they're escrow or if you are making those payments yourself. All of those things, like understanding all of that, just so you don't get caught in a surprise 5, 6, 7 months down the road. So that wraps up part 3 of our little home buying series. I hope this brought some more knowledge and demystified some of the things that homeowners go through when they're buying a house and made it a little bit easier to follow and understand. There are a lot of variables, and it can be overwhelming when your realtor and the bank and all these places are asking you different questions and for different things, and you're trying to go see properties and you're trying to figure out your pre-approval. There's just a lot. And so we just wanted to make sure that you understood what it was. You had a checklist of what the process will look like over the time you've spent listening to these 3 courses. And if buying a home is in your near-term future, like hopefully it sets the stage and gives you a little piece on knowing what's coming. Thanks again for joining us. Of course, if this content is helpful, please follow us on the podcast player of your choice. Hit us up on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Leave us comments, leave us reviews. We'd love to hear from you. Your comments dictate where we go with content in the future. One last time, thanks for joining us today. I'm Jim. Bye, everybody. Net Wealth Nest LLC and Podcast is an educational platform committed to providing resources and information to empower individuals on their financial journey. Please note, we do not provide financial, tax, or investment advice. All financial decisions should be made in consultation with a qualified professional who understands your unique circumstances. Seeking personalized advice is a smart and necessary step before making any major financial commitments. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Net Wealth Nest, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We read every comment, and they help us improve and guide what topics we dive into next. And hey, if something you heard today resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a family member, a coworker, your barber, your barista, even a stranger in line. You never know who might need this message. Remember, building net wealth is a journey, but you don't have to do it alone. Stick with us, and together, let's grow your net wealth nest.